Here we go. All right, so good afternoon, Ms. Downes. Thank you for joining me on the 16th episode here of One to Come Up, a podcast where aspiring entrepreneurs can learn from the best of the best, those on Forbes 30 under 30. I'm really excited to learn about your career today and all the amazing things you've done. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
Cool. So before we begin, can you tell the viewers, what few viewers I do have, if any at all, who you are and what your company is?
Of course. Firstly, look, even if you've got 10 listeners now, you might have a million in the future. So let's not talk it down. But yeah, I'm Choë Downes. I'm the founder and CEO of SHFT, which is an influencer talent management agency. We're based in the UK, but we currently just manage creators in the UK, but we've managed creators outside of that previously. We've just decided to hone in on the UK for now and really affect that before we move on to other markets. We have been running, we're nearly 4, so we're turning 4 in April. And prior to that, I was working in the influencer industry as a talent manager.
Awesome. So that's very cool. It's definitely the first influencer-based company that we've kind of had on the podcast. So normally I like to start the podcast during your time in university. So can you explain kind of what in your high school years kind of led you to pursue event management and your overall college experience?
Yeah, it was all a bit of an accident, to be honest. When I was from the age of about 6, I think I was doing musical theatre. So I went to an after school club, did musical theatre on the weekends and after school. Really was focusing on dancing at one point and started focusing on pursuing a career as a professional dancer. Was training all the time, all day Saturday, twice a week after school, and then I was also doing dance as a subject. I've always been someone throughout my schooling life where I was very creative, but I was also very academically. I was doing very well academically, so I was doing very well in science and maths and English and all that kind of stuff. But in my head, I was focused on dance. I then decided I was going to give up dance when I was 16, I think, just because it's getting really difficult to juggle everything. And at that point, I really just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life anymore. So I sat down with my mum and I knew I wanted to go to university. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I sat down with my mum and we went through this massive university book that we have in the UK that goes through every university and every course that we have. Went through everything and then found event management and thought it was a really good mix of my skills where I'm very, very organized. But at the same time, I'm very creative. So it felt like a good mixture. So yeah, kind of just went because I thought it would be a good course for me to do. Went to Bournemouth University because it was the best for event management at the time. I'm not sure if it still is. And then, yeah, did events and then came out, did events for a year. After I left university, I was traveling all around the world doing global events, really, really huge events. And then didn't like the company I was working for at the time. And then again, just kind of accidentally fell into influencer marketing because I saw a job posting and it seemed all right. So I started it. And then, yeah, it's all carried on from there. I was doing well at the company I was working for, moved up very quickly throughout the industry. I started with absolutely no knowledge of marketing and influence marketing. And then after a year, I think after 3 months, I got promoted within the company I was in. After a year, I got poached by another agency to basically help them start up their influence and management arm. And then after a year working there, then I started my own company.
Dope.
I feel like that was a really quick life story.
Yeah, well, that was definitely an overview, but I'm excited now to really dive into it. So you mentioned with the first company, you really enjoyed your job, but you didn't necessarily like the company you were working for. So what was specifically about them that maybe you didn't like, and now you try to kind of learn from, and do things differently with your own?
Yeah, I think from the events company, it was a fun job, but I think one of the issues is that they put a lot of pressure on their kind of most junior team members. And with me in particular, they continuously told me how well I was doing and how I was doing a lot better than other people on the kind of same level as me within the company. But they weren't giving me anything extra because of that. So there was no promotion, there was no raise, there was nothing like that. And also because I was doing so well, they kept on giving me more and more work, again, without actually offering me anything more. And they just generally weren't treating me very nicely. I think it was there was some level of it that was because of my background. I was the only person of color working in the company. And I was the only working class person within the company as well. And there was a lot of microaggressions and little sly comments that happened quite often. So yeah, I just just needed to get out of it, to be honest. I think something I learned from that company is that it's sometimes culture can be toxic. And I think they looked like they were doing really well with culture because they were doing really cool like days out and we would do like fun parties and all those kinds of things. But actually when you got to the core of it, the culture wasn't for everyone. And they weren't very inclusive in their culture. So I think that's actually something I learned from that company and put it into mine, where we have a culture, but the culture is inclusive and it's not forced upon people, basically.
Yeah, that's important that I guess you mentioned that it's not so ticky boxy with your company, that you actually are inclusive and you are all those things and
Exactly.
going through the motions.
Yeah.
So when was like kind of the moment where you decided to start shift, like where you realize, you know, you could do it on your own and maybe even better and implement everything you've learned?
Yeah. So the second talent agency I worked for, the one that I got poached and went over there, I when I started, I actually didn't have a boss because within the period of time of me being offered the job and me starting the job, because obviously usually you give like a month's notice, right? Within that month, my boss had left. So I then started and there was no direct manager within the like management arm. So I kind of was like a team on my own within this larger company, like larger marketing company. So I kind of had done everything. Like I'd set up all the contracts, I'd had meetings with the lawyers and the finance people and all of that kind of stuff to make sure we were ready to launch this company. And then my manager came in a few months after. And I just thought I've kind of done all of the work here. And and you kind of come in and now you're kind of claiming to do a lot of the work, but really I did a lot of it. So I think because of that, and just seeing how much she actually needed my help and how much she kind of asked me for advice and all those kinds of things, it really made me realize that look, if this person that's above me needs my help, then surely I can just do her job. So yeah, so honestly, that's how I started.
Cool. So how did you start shift? Because I guess you were in the industry for a while, you had your network,
Mm.
but you had never started a company previously. So what were like the first things you did there, and you know, just having everyone on board and
Yeah, one thing I will say is that starting an influence and management agency isn't particularly hard. It Starting a successful one is hard, but starting an influencer management agency isn't particularly hard in terms of there's not a lot of barriers to entry there. So it's not like I need to build any infrastructure or like have a massive team to get started. Realistically, all you need to start is a laptop and a phone and the internet connection. That's basically it.
wow.
So it's not something where I had to. Well, that's we'll go into it a bit more, but that's like the base level stuff that you need. So I had enough money to buy myself a laptop. I already had a phone. I was living with my parents at the time because it was actually during lockdown. So I'd moved back home, as many people did because you didn't want to be on your own. So I moved back home. I was using their internet connection to be honest. But yeah, so I just kind of started, and I think what made Shift successful was that as much as it's very easy for anyone to have the laptop and the phone and all those kinds of things. Actually, it's the knowledge and the knowledge and the contacts that you need to start a successful agency. So because I'd already had a few years in the industry and I built up a very good reputation within that time, I had people that were ready to sign with me. It also meant that I could launch with talent who had quite big names. So quite often when people start their own agency, if they're not really kind of from the industry initially, they will be signing people who are quite small, who like no one's really heard of. Which means that in terms of kind of getting their name out there as an agency, it takes a lot longer because no one's really heard of their talent. So where I was able to sign quite big talent from the get go, it meant that people were hearing Shift and hearing our name like way more often in conversations. And actually, quite often we were speaking to people who thought we'd been running for way longer than we were. I remember actually having a conversation with someone from Meta, like maybe a month after we launched. And she was saying, "Oh, I've only just come across you guys. I've only just heard of you guys." And I said, "Yeah, because we just launched like a month ago." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I would like looking at your website, looking at your talent. I would have assumed you've been running for years." So I think having like a really strong starting roster was really helpful for our like kind of very fast progression within the industry. Also, I took a lot of talent from my old agency. They hadn't set up their company in a way where I couldn't take talent. So what happened was that how they kind of set their company up is that most of the creators that we were managing only had a relationship with their direct like talent manager, which meant that if their talent manager left, they were very likely to leave as well because they had no other kind of link to the agency. So again, a learning that I had from that was that every single person who signs a shift has a relationship with everyone, right? So they've got a relationship, even if I'm not kind of doing their day-to-day work, they've still got a relationship with me. They've still got a relationship with like the higher management team as well as their individual manager, which means that if anyone leaves, it's way less likely that a talent will leave with a member of staff just because people are invested in shift rather than people be invested in like their individual manager. So took a lot of talent from my old agency. And yeah, and then I had the expertise because I've been working in the space and I'd really perfected my craft and tried to understand as much as I possibly could about everything. And I think that one of the reasons I had a good reputation within the industry was because I've always been outspoken. I've always spoken up if I think something's wrong. I've always been very vocal about on a lot of topics, which gets you a reputation. Luckily for me, mine's good because I people like that I speak the truth. but, but yeah, also that there are now, but when I kind of first started in the industry, there weren't a lot of managers who were Black or from Black heritage. So where I was one of the very few Black talent managers, it meant that loads of Black talent wanted to be signed to me because they felt some kind of like level of understanding there that maybe other talent managers might not have or wouldn't understand. And also then other people from other minorities then wanted to be signed to me because there was some like base level of understanding of just being a minority in general. So yeah, it was kind of all of those things mixed together. But as I say, it's like my mum could start a talent management agency tomorrow. Would it be a good one? Probably not, because she doesn't actually know how to use social media, but she could set one up, right? So I think that's one thing I always say when I'm asked about kind of building the company, because it's not that I had to, put loads of money in or build loads of stuff. I didn't have to do that, but it was more all of the work I'd done before starting it that helped me out in the long run.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, like the mass exodus you caused with your previous company. How you built,
Yeah,
you kind of like built.
they've actually shut down now. So
Well, it didn't sound like they were good anyway. So, like Noah built the ark, and then everybody followed him. So that's pretty cool. So I guess I also kind of answer my next question. I was going to ask you about how you scaled the company, because you were in your first year, you did like $1 million in revenue, and then in your second year, in revenue, and that's like
Yeah,
amazing for like a startup like that. You
yeah,
were able
thank you.
to grow year after year.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I was gonna say I think it was I don't know what I'm trying to think what it is in dollars because it was, oh yeah, Forbes wrote it in dollars, didn't they? And now I can't remember what the conversion is. But yeah, it was just under £1 million in the first year. So we hit £1 million by year third and by month 13. So just literally just after a year, which is annoying. So it would have been cooler if we could say a million in our first year, but what, a million in our first 13 months at least.
Yeah.
£1 million, maybe I can say $1 million though, so that's not a lie. I did hit $1 million in the first year, and then it's kind of obviously just gone up from there. It was also quite a good stat for you to know. I don't think it would have been reported in Forbes. Is that we've got 100% staff retention, so nobody's ever left the company. Which is something that the figures are great and making a lot of money is great, but actually I'm really proud of the fact that I built a company that people genuinely enjoy working for, especially because obviously I've spoken briefly about one of my old experiences, but I've had such a bad experience working for other people that actually that was a very important thing for me, that I made a company that people were happy to work for. Actually, when people are happy, it just helps everything else. And actually, you probably will make more money when people are happy.
Yeah, that is an impressive statistic there, 100% retention rate. So what is your company culture, and what do you focus on predominantly in finding good team members, and seeing even with the clients that you hire, what's important to you, also in the long term, when you're looking at everything
Yeah.
to bring on board.
So with staff, the first person I brought in was actually a guy that I worked with at my previous agency. We'd met at that agency and got on really well and had very similar work ethics and just general kind of outlook on the industry as a whole. So there's things as a founder that I knew, there were strengths that I didn't have as a founder, and so I brought in someone else senior to basically help me with those things that I maybe lacked, which has been very helpful. And I think that's where a lot of solo founders struggle, where there's no one's good at everything, right? And sometimes you need to bring people in to fill those gaps in what you're maybe not good at. And I think sometimes people are a bit precious about keeping everything to themselves, when actually you probably do better by bringing people in that can help you with things that you're not great at. I would then say with my team after that, I then focused on only hiring entry level talent and junior talent. There was two reasons for that. Firstly, the marketing industry in the UK and probably worldwide, but in the UK definitely is very undiverse. So it's very white and middle class, and I'm not white or middle class. So I wanted to try to bring more people from kind of like working class backgrounds, people of color. We're based in London, and it just doesn't make sense to not look like the world around us. So I was trying to bring more people in, and you have to remove as many barriers to entry as possible to get those people in, because that's the reason that it's not a diverse industry, because there's a lot of barriers to entry. So that was one thing. That was one of my goals, was trying to diversify the industry. But in terms of the benefits of the company, it meant that I wasn't hiring someone from another agency that had, you know, like like bad habits or like weird ways of working. So I didn't have to untrain someone. It's way easier to train someone who doesn't know anything than untrain someone who knows the wrong thing. So that was a big focus of mine, to basically bring in junior talent. It took longer to train them, which meant that we could have grown and scaled a lot quicker by just bringing people in from other agencies and poaching people. But I didn't want to do that. I'd rather have sustainable growth than very fast growth, and then, you know, the culture of the company is diluted because there's all these different people from all these different places who are all trained in very different ways. So I think that's also one of the reasons we've had good staff retention, because people have grown with the company, and I've always tried to make sure that everyone within the team has some say in what the company looks like. Like, we're still a startup, right? So I think it doesn't make sense for me to just decide everything and just tell people they have to go along with it. It's important for me to like try my best to get my team's like thoughts and feelings when I'm implementing things as well.
Awesome. So what's also kind of your model with when you sign an influencer? Because I know with
Oh
I
yeah.
podcast, or that another podcast you did where you mentioned how it's maybe one person only manages like 4 or 5 people, whereas with your previous companies you were managing like 10 and 12. So how do you continue to
Mm.
scale if you know you have only a limited signage per person?
Yeah. Firstly, can I just say this is completely separate, but thank you for doing your research.
Yeah,
I go on so many podcasts, and I'm like, I've already told everyone this information somewhere. Like, so thank you for doing your
I
research.
try to
But
do. I know, you know.
no, no, no. But I think it also just means that we have a better conversation, because you're getting new information out of me rather than stuff I've said before. But yeah, so we my team is limited to like kind of maximum six talent per talent manager. One of the reasons is, as I say, because at old agencies I was managing up to like 10, 11 people at a time, and it's really hard to like split your time evenly throughout those people. It's also just you're working with individuals, right? So there's so many different personalities, different like personal issues and things that people are going through. It's just hard to juggle everything in your brain. So I thought if I limit it, then people will do a better job for the individuals. They'll have better relationships with the individuals, and we can do more for the individuals rather than doing less for more people. I'm also very much just more quality over quantity. We can have loads of people on our roster, but that doesn't mean they'd be good. And actually, one of the things about Shift is that we have a really big reputation for having really good talent. We don't just have loads of talent; we have good talent, and people know they can come to us and get good creators that are gonna perform really well, and we're gonna provide a good service. So yeah, basically that was the focus. I also think I've worked for companies before who are so focused on growth that they don't focus on like the standards of the work they're putting out, which is why I think sustainable growth is always the way forward. I think you can grow quickly, but that doesn't mean you're putting anything good out there.
Cool. So how do you decide who you're going to take on, who you're going to sign as an influencer? Because I know like some companies
Yeah.
do a following base, like a minimum size. But you guys seem to be different in that as well.
Yeah, we don't really have a minimum size. There's some things you do need to look at for size, just because obviously if you've got like 10 followers, you're not gonna probably get any brand deals, which means that like as a company we're gonna be putting a lot of work and not really getting anything out from it. So there's different things we look at depending on the person. There's some people who signed kind of less than 10K followers, but it's because we can see like the future of them is going to be massive. And we've had a few examples of that with people that we signed like end of last year, where they had less than 10K followers and are now over like 60,000 followers in the space of like a few months, because we knew we knew where they could be. They were just not doing the right things to get there. So helping to reposition things people has been really good. The main thing for me is that people are good people. I don't want to work with dickheads. Basically, I was going to try to think of another more polite word, but that's
Oh
what it is.
yeah.
I honestly I don't want to work with dickheads, and I think I again like working for other companies. I saw how a lot of my managers cared way more about like the money certain people were making than how they were treating the team. And actually, that was more of a reason for me to potentially leave those companies because I was like, you don't care about me, you just care about the money that these creators are bringing in. And actually, my focus is I'm going to care about my team. They're going to care about the talent they're working with because the talent respect them. Like there's a mutual level of respect there, and everyone's just going to do a way better job. So we've dropped some of our biggest money makers because they were just not being nice people. And actually, it worked out better in the end because the amount of kind of like mental strain that it takes to constantly work with someone who's being rude to you and being disrespectful to you just means that you're not going to do a good job. You're not going to be excited to come into work because you're just feeling worn down. You're maybe not going to have as much time to do work for some of your other talents because you're spending so much time having to like coach them or whatever it may be. So yeah, honestly, working with nice people just makes life easier. And like why would you not want to work with nice people? So nice people, people that are a good influence. I always think like if I had kids, would I be happy for my kids to follow everyone on our roster? There's a lot of people, there's a lot of like negativity online, and I just don't really want to add to that. So that's quite a big thing for me. But yeah, that's honestly those kind of main things. Oh, we need to know that the people are going to make some level of money, right? Like, as we're still a business, so it's all good having nice people, but people need to make money. So we kind of need to see that they're the kind of creator that's going to be able to work with brands, or is it already able to work or already working with brands, sorry. Or maybe someone who we're like, that would be a great person for a book, or that like this person would be really great for like presenting in the future. Like we kind of just need to like look at where we could position them in the future, even if they're not doing that right now, but they need to be in a space where people are going to be interested to work with them. Because actually there's people with millions and millions of followers who make absolutely no money off of brand deals. Like all of their money is just views because they don't actually have anything. Like they're not valuable to any brands, right? Like a lot of people who like post like first straps and stuff won't really get that many brand deals because there's not a lot of brands that want to associate themselves with that kind of content. So putting out valuable content is better than just having loads of followers. And talent management companies generally, I think some people do, but generally they won't. We generally don't take a cut of like people's AdSense. So when like you post on YouTube, you get like paid per view or like paid per like how long people are watching or whatever. And TikTok has things like that as well. Management agencies don't take a cut out of that. So even if you're getting millions and millions of views, that doesn't actually help us as an agency. It's the brand deals and the books and all those kinds of things that are gonna make us money because we take a commission on any of those deals that we get for you.
It's really interesting also that you mentioned some people who have millions of followers but they don't make any money. I guess that's
Yeah.
always the conception I had that those are the people that are making the most money, but I guess not because they don't have the brand deals.
No. Yeah, no, not at all. It's funny because I think it is such a common kind of misconception that that's how it works, and it just doesn't. I remember speaking to someone. I think it was last year. A guy had reached out to me about management, and he had like 3 million followers. And I was asking him about if I never ask people how much money they make because I feel like it's a rude question to just ask someone off the bat. But and it also just makes us look like that's all we care about. But I was kind of asking him about the kind of brands he was working with, and I know generally how much different brands pay. And there's some brands that are very well known for just not paying people well at all, or not paying people. They just send people products, which again, as a management agency, doesn't benefit me. I can't take 20% of I don't know, a top. So I remember speaking to him and he was telling me about some of the brands he was working with, but he was also complaining a lot about how little brand deals he gets and how little money he makes from all of these brand deals that he's getting. But yeah, he had a 3 million followers. In comparison, we've got creators who are like under 50k, like 20k followers who are making loads of money. We've had creators who are under 100k followers who are making like over 100,000 pounds a year.
Wow.
So it's so dependent on so many factors. And actually, yeah, followers nowadays anyway. Back in the day, you would just get paid because you had followers, but nowadays there's so much less focus on follower size when people are when brands are like choosing who to work with.
So I guess there's still hope for me with less than even 100 followers to make some money.
Honestly, 100%. I remember speaking to a girl I'm trying to think when was it? Like when it was. It was very early on. I feel like maybe it was like the first year of Shift, and I was on a panel with her. And I'd never heard of her before. I think she had like 10K followers or something like that when I had a look at her. She was telling me about this podcast that I'd never heard of. And we were having such a good conversation, and she was like, I was trying to help her out after that. But she's now selling out like I don't know if you've heard of the O2, but it's a massive venue in the UK.
No.
But she's like selling out like the O2, doing like live podcasts. She's flying around the world with this podcast. She's doing so well, and it me looking at it at the start, I could see that it was going to go somewhere, but at the time, it looked like she wasn't really doing that well. So I think things can go anywhere, honestly. So don't like put yourself down or like think you're not getting anywhere because you've got like a small amount of views. There's people who have had 100 views on their videos for 10 years, and then all of a sudden something blows up and now they're getting millions and millions of views, right? Like sometimes it's just that one thing, or like one person hearing about it or one person speaking about it that will kind of snowball from there. So I would just say, yeah, just keep at it for real. And that's the message for anyone really. You just got to just keep doing it. But also it does come from what your motivations are. If you get into this space and like the influencer space in general because you want money, because you want success, because you want fame, you probably won't get it. Like you have to come into it feeling like I really enjoy having these conversations, or I really enjoy showing people what I'm wearing today, or do you know what I mean? It has to be some level of like enjoyment from it, because if not, you're not going to stick it out for long enough for you to find the success. And actually, I would say it's not always beneficial to go viral early on, because then you don't really understand the work that goes into continuing it. It's better to have to grind for a little bit and then get your come up, and then you already have the work ethic there to just keep on going up and up.
Very cool. So yeah, I guess that is the thing I noticed with you, that you have to do it for the right reasons, not solely,
100%.
but that you enjoy, that it's passionate. So we're kind of are getting at the half hour mark, and I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you got an event to attend, but I normally like to leave the podcast kind of looking forward towards the future. Where do you think? I guess you're going to be in like a year or two. Um,
Where am I going to be in a year or two? Do you know what's really bad? And I'm sure a lot of founders will not like this advice, but I always say it. I try not to look into the future like that. I think I I know
yeah,
myself, and I'm the kind of person where if I say I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. Like I will not say something if I'm not going to do it. I told everyone last year that I was going to be on the Forbes list. I said to everyone, I'm going to be on the list this year, and I
you
did it,
were.
right. But like this is it. I got it. But so I think I never want to say where I'm going to be in a few years' time, because you honestly never know what's going to happen. Like if you'd asked me 10 years ago, where are you going to be in 10 years' time? I would have never said here. I would have probably said something completely different. If you asked me when I was a kid, I would have said I'm going to be a professional dancer, which is not what I'm doing, right? So I think I try my best not to look too far, not to kind of like box myself into any specific goals, because my life has been full of pivots and changes. And actually, I enjoy that about my life. That I've like opportunities have come and I've gone that way, and then another opportunity's come and I've gone another way. So I think my general goal in life is to be content. That's my main focus. I don't strive for happiness, because happiness is fleeting. So I always strive for contentment. And I think success in the way it makes sense to me. Success is different, so different for everyone. And that's it. Yeah, I just want to be successful for myself and content. That's my main focus. With Shift is going to continue growing. Like it's been growing for the past 4 years. Again, without me really saying, oh, it's going to be here in this year and here in this year. It's going to continue growing. And actually, this industry is the kind of industry where you really cannot plan ahead at all. Like TikTok was banned like the other day, and then it popped back up again. So you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, I think just focus on with Shift, just carrying on doing what we're doing. And then with myself, just as I say, focusing on contentment and success for myself. That's the vibe. I know that was that's like so vague,
Yeah,
but
I loved it.
I
Yeah,
yeah, I don't have
it's
I don't have
perfect.
specifics.
Awesome. Well, I guess thank you for joining me today on the podcast. That was definitely a very cool perspective you've had, and I really enjoyed
Thank
hearing
you.
your story and your perspective. And I can definitely see why you've been so successful in your career. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
awesome. Well, I'll see you later.